Hey folks, before we get started, a quick note and a chance to win a $100 gift card. Please go to podsurvey.com/Harris and take a survey. It helps keep the show free, and we like free. Plus, it'll help advertisers understand our audience, and they do keep the show free for you. You'd be doing me a favor, and did I mention a chance to win a $100 gift card? That's podsurvey.com/HARRIS. Thank you very much. Now, let's get to the show.
It's the Harris Football Podcast with your host, Christopher Harris.
Welcome in. Welcome. Thank you very much for being here. I am Chris Harris. This is the Harris Football Podcast. I've gotten a lot of tweets and emails asking how folks can help the show. They're worried about my livelihood. They're very nice, very kind. And I would say the number one thing you can do, honestly, is subscribe to the podcast. I'm not sure if you're aware, but what we're measured by, what advertisers are intrigued by, are downloads. So if you subscribe, your phone or your device, your tablet, whatever, will get the podcast every day. I want you to listen to them because I hope you like the show, but the downloads really do help. So the number one thing, if you'd like to help the little podcast that could, would be to please subscribe. Okay, enough of that. Very excited to say we finally have a little preseason action to dig our teeth into and to totally overreact to. Even though we're still like 27 days away from Steelers-Patriots fantasy drafts, I have a feeling they're going to get started in earnest this weekend, which is awesome. I think you know this, but just in case, I do have player ranks for you at harrisfootball.com. Plus, I've been making player videos like crazy. We have a YouTube channel, and I've been taking your requests on Twitter at Harris Football, making a bunch of videos that you want to see. By the way, if you like those videos, you can subscribe to the channel. That kind of helps us out. But whatever, I hope you enjoy them. They are free to you. So anyway, all this is to say it's happening. It's really happening. Football's coming. So let's do this thing.
Today's kickoff.
On today's show, quickly we'll dive into some injury news and talk about some of the preseason action. Then it's on to our swing player countdown. Yesterday was 10 through 6. Today, 5 through 1. These are the players with the widest range of possible outcomes for this year and what I think of them in general. Then we'll have the mailbag, and Cousin Josh will come on to take me to task and point out a few of my swing players that he thinks are not so swingy. By the way, are you guys hearing that? Oh, neighbor lawnmowers. I am trying to record this while neighbor lawnmowers are zipping by. Okay, so enough of my neighborhood association complaints. Let's talk injuries. Alshon Jeffrey came out of the Bears preseason game last night with a calf strain, reportedly wearing a walking boot and using crutches, although John Fox says it's day-to-day. It's something worth keeping an eye on. If you're drafting this weekend, we're still a month away. I don't think you lower Jeffrey in your ranks. That's the big name. There's some, lesser names here. Jason Morrow, Jets tight end. Shoulder injury, came out of the game as of when I'm recording this with the lawnmowers. There's no news on the severity of the injury, but Niles Paul, the Washington tight end who appeared to be threatening Jordan Reed, fractured his ankle, is out for the year, so Jordan Reed looks like he's a little bit safer. Of course, Reed himself has a hamstring injury, wasn't able to play in the first preseason game. So I would imagine Washington's going to bring in another tight end. I did not raise Reed on this news because, frankly, he's hard to trust. Cowboys have an undrafted free agent running back who's made a little noise in camp named Gus Johnson from Stephen F. Austin. Unfortunately, after showing fairly well last night, Johnson also suffered a shoulder injury of unknown severity, so we'll have to see how that works out in dynasty leagues like La Liga Lebowski. I actually did take Gus Johnson near the end of the auction, just on the off chance that he works his way into a rotation at some point. The Washington running back rookie Matt Jones, who looks like he has a line on being Alfred Morris's primary backup. He ran well on Thursday night, but exited with a head injury. Might have been a concussion, though the team later said he was cleared. Obviously, we don't always know how real that is, but something to keep an eye on. For what it's worth, Brandon Browner, Saints corner, who signed after winning a Super Bowl with New England last year, he exited with a knee injury. He was carted from the sideline to the locker room, so something to keep an eye on for the Saints defense. Just a couple other non-injury preseason notes. Those Patriot fans who are hoping Jimmy Garoppolo is ready in case Tom Brady's suspension is upheld. He did not show that he was ready in week 1 of the preseason. That was not a good performance, in my opinion. Amir Abdullah was a star. My Joik Bell position. I'm maintaining my Joik Bell position. I'm not letting one preseason game change my mind, but, the skills that those of us in this business knew that Abdullah had were on full display against the Jets. One great run with an incredible cut. There's no question he has a role in that offense. I'm just not buying that it's at the total expense of Bell. That is a topic that we will touch on later in the show. Lamar Miller, if you're going to like Abdullah's run, you have to like Lamar Miller's run. That was a terrific play, not just showing sprinter speed, but the ability to put his foot in the ground and go. Jonas Gray of the Patriots, I would say his touchdown run was not the result of amazing footwork on his part. He sort of just drifted towards the right sideline and found no one there. But what was impressive is that for a 225-pound kid, he has some real straight-ahead speed. He ran away from both a linebacker and a defensive back, so worth keeping an eye on that. Danny Woodhead, Lorenzo Taliaferro both stole some short touchdowns, inciting legions of panic among people who are looking at Melvin Gordon and Justin Forsett, but come on, a little early. Brandon Cooks, who cousin Josh will not enjoy very much later in the show, took a bubble screen to the house. I continue to think he has some upside. We're going to talk about him. And Brandon Oliver, filthy touchdown run with a hard cut. Looked like Maurice Jones-Drew to me, but again, we have to calm down about stuff like that here about a month away from the regular season starting. Okay, so let's keep going on our swing player list. I want to review yesterday the 10 through 6 on swing players. You can download and listen to that podcast and hear the explanation of all these players if you haven't yet. Number 10 on my swing player list was Todd Gurley. Number 9, Andre Johnson. Number 8, Jordan Matthews. Number 7, Cam Newton. And number 6, the ubiquitous.
Eye roll.
Yes, the ubiquitous Joik Bell. And that brings us to number 5, and it is T.J. Yeldon, the running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Not Jaguars. Don't say Jaguars. It makes you sound like a jaguar. So as far as Yeldon goes, this spring and summer, I don't know. I felt like the T.J. Yeldon hype train was even more powerful than the little podcast that could. People were talking about him like maybe the number 1 rookie of the year, a great bet to be a top 20 fantasy back with upside for top 10. I felt like, I don't know, I felt like I was going crazy. The voice of reason in the wilderness. But seriously, Twitter completely blew up when I ranked him 24th among running backs. People were angry with me. But actually, I think things have calmed down a lot on him. So, I think we've found some restraint when it comes to T.J. Yeldon. Mostly I think it's because of the helmet he wears now. Nobody wants to be too high on a Jacksonville running back. I actually think his average draft position right now is just about perfect. He's 24th among running backs, 58th overall. I have him a little higher overall, actually, but I think that's about the right area for him. And I think that reduced feeling, that feeling like 24th among running backs reflects the wide range of possible outcomes for Yeldon, and that's what makes him a swing player. I mean, we all know he looks the part. Big, powerful, not one of those sluggish big runners. He has some dynamic ability to him. Plus, he seems to have an inside track to a lot of work right away in Jacksonville. But it is the Jags. The Jags produced 10 carries total all year inside an opponent's 5. That was 29th most in the NFL. And the Jags have big questions on the offensive line, and certainly, I think, still at quarterback. Plus, Yeldon himself is kind of a puzzle to me. He has all that raw ability, but why did he, continually lose playing time to various other backs in college? Why did I have a sense that he didn't always play big in big spots? Just remember, I'm acknowledging Yeldon's upside, absolutely. I'm just sort of explaining why not to get too excited, or at least explain why we don't know what to expect, because a lot of different things could happen with Yeldon. But summer depth chart status, that is not the final word on fantasy value. Just remember the curious case of Bishop Sankey. I admit it, I considered him last year's number 1 rookie, and a lot of it was based on the depth chart in Tennessee. If Yeldon pops as a true number 1 running back, he could absolutely pop big, but he also could be, Bishop Sankey 2.0. And that is the very definition of a swing player. Number 4 on my swing player list is Carlos Hyde, running back for the San Francisco 49ers. As folks have gotten more and more nervous about the 49ers taking a huge downturn this year, they've gotten more and more concerned about Hyde. And I get it. That's a rational response to concerns about a team. There is, some pretty good correlation between a team's quality and the number of rushing touchdowns they produce, though that's by no means a perfect correlation. There have been dozens and dozens of running backs on bad teams who've produced good fantasy seasons. Anyway, putting Hyde at number 4 on this list is an acknowledgement of the downside that some folks are worried about, and an acknowledgement of his risk. We don't really know what we're going to get out of a swing player like this because of the wide range of possible outcomes. If you don't have the stomach for risk like this, I'm totally fine staying away from Hyde because he is risky. But let's talk about his upside for a minute. I thought he looked strong last year. The tape was really kind to him. 235-pound bruiser, decisive, runs low, runs mean. Honestly, in November last year, I thought the Niners might have been better off giving him a little bit more work because Frank Gore, in some key spots, looked like his legs were fading a little bit, though not to digress too much, but to be fair, Gore had 2 massive games at the end of the fantasy playoffs when it no longer mattered for the Niners. But regardless, all this is to say Hyde's a player I believe in. In a better situation, which is to say a better team, Hyde would be someone that some people would be touting as a possible top 10 sleeper. As it is, I have him 15th among running backs. His average draft position is 17th among running backs, and that's probably fair. That's as it should be because there's a risk of a 6-touchdown season if the 49ers can't get out of their own way. My point, though, is don't lower him too far on your personal draft board because the talent is real. The number 3 swing player of 2015 is Brandon Cooks. An awful lot of pressure is being placed on a second-year kid with 53 career catches. And the thing is, mostly, I'm buying in. He's my number 18 wide receiver, and I view him as a viable pick in the late 4th, early 5th of a 12-team league. But I have to admit, there's a stupid amount of risk. He's 5'10", 190 pounds, so he does not fit the mold of a traditional wide receiver leading man. Still, he mixed it up a lot last year. Pro Football Focus had him running 353 routes before he got hurt. Only 104 of those were out of the slot. So yeah, he looks like a slot player when you see him come off the bus. And when the Saints go 4 and 5 wide, often he will run out of the slot. But in their base offense, Cook's very often an outside receiver, which is good because it gets him away from the scrum of bodies that bog down the middle of the field. But of course it can be bad if a little guy like him can't get away from big, monolithic corners there on the outside. So the risk that comes in is, can Cooks be an Antonio Brown, Odell Beckham kind of player who can consistently win on the outside because of quickness and not size? And yes, obviously by my rank, I think he can. But I admit, I don't have a ton of evidence because Cooks never really had the big game last year. He made plays, but he never had that one huge game. On paper, he looked fairly pedestrian. I'm expecting a big leap from him. Well, not literally. He's short, not much of an end zone leaper. But you saw in the first preseason game, even on a little bubble screen, he's a frightening guy, quick in the open field. But I get it. I get the doubters. Big risk of not being able to beat a team's top corner, when every time he needs to. Risk of not being able to shoulder a huge workload. There's no proven receivers there. Marcus Colston out of the slot, but out wide, there's not a lot else. They're relying on him for a huge amount of targets. It's risky, but obviously, as I said, according to my rank, I do acknowledge the downside, but love the upside. The number 2 swing player of 2015 is Justin Forsett. Now, he was awesome last year. He had 80-plus scrimmage yards in 11 games, including a string of 9 straight from weeks 4 to 13. And he might actually have been underutilized as a receiver with only 44 catches. We know Mark Trestman threw it to Matt Forte an awful lot last year, and Forsett has a chance to go reception crazy this season. So why is Justin Forsett a swing player? Well, I've certainly talked about him a lot. Maybe not as much as Joique Bell, but a lot. And here's the risk as I see it. He's entering his age 30 season, he turns 30 in October, as a one-hit wonder. He'd never eclipsed even 1,000 total yards in any of his previous 6 seasons, during which he'd mostly been a change-of-pace guy. And at 5'8" and 190 pounds, I wonder if he can handle the pounding that comes with another full season of touches. Buck Allen and Lorenzo Taliaferro obviously behind Forsett on the depth chart to begin the season, but they're bigger, and they loom as potential options if Forsett gets nicked up or regresses some. There's no question if Forsett isn't going to be a one-year wonder, me having him as a 4th-round pick in a 12-team draft and as my number 20 running back in standard scoring, although I have him number 12 in a PPR. Again, you can find those ranks on harrisfootball.com. Anyway, those ranks won't look very good if Forsett is legit again this year. But I do see real risk and potential downside. I remember Steve Slayton in Houston. As a rookie, running for nearly 1,300 yards, 9 touchdowns, 5'9", 200-ish pounds. Coming into the 2009 season as the number 11 running back and 19th overall in average fantasy drafts, and getting crunched in that second year, hurting his neck and never being the same after that. Now, obviously, I admit you're screaming at your phone or wherever you're listening to this podcast. I admit it's stupid to say, oh, it happened to Steve Slayton 6 years ago. It's definitely going to happen to Forsett. But Forsett is a player who'd been with 3 other teams. They'd never judged him to be a super talented guy. So I'm not promising I'm definitely right about him, but I do think, hey, you have to acknowledge that there is real risk. Finally, the number 1 swing player of 2015 is, I don't really think it's debatable right now. It's Joseph Randle, running back for the Cowboys. There's so much risk with Randle, but the possible rewards are crazy. Best offensive line in the league last year, produced so much running room for DeMarco Murray. Plus, we saw Randle bust open a few huge plays in limited action last year. I can absolutely imagine a scenario where Randle picks up where Murray left off and becomes a top 5 overall fantasy player. There really is that kind of upside. But do we know for sure that Randle is a special player? I don't think we do. Do we know that he won't lose time to Darren McFadden, yuck, Lance Dunbar, mentioned Gus Johnson, and or some free agent that the Cowboys haven't signed yet? We don't. Do we know that the Dallas offensive line will be as great or, more importantly, as healthy as it was last year. We do not. Drafting entirely based on situation can really bite you. This is the premier spot in the entire NFL for a running back. They could almost run anyone out there. He'd be great. Now, that's not a ringing endorsement when you're saying Randall could literally just be anyone. He's straight line fast. He has some cutting ability, even though I don't think it's the greatest. But there are real questions about how he uses that cutting ability, about his vision. Questions, it's true, he really hasn't played enough to have an opportunity to answer. If the downside is Randall's kind of a little bit of a head case and can't take advantage of the opportunity and winds up part of a frustrating platoon, then I have to admit the upside is, as I've said, astronomical. So how do you rank a guy like that? Where do you draft a guy like that? I have Randall number 25 among running backs, number 53 overall in standard scoring leagues, and that, coincidentally, is one spot in both cases behind TJ Yeldon, who I already talked about. That's how I split the baby in this case. I'm worried the Cowboys will go with the hot hand in too many games and that Randall won't differentiate himself from the crowd. But if you take him way earlier than that, with dreams of all that upside, I couldn't blame you at all. I'm totally fine with it. Because as 2015's number one swing player, Randall is for me literally the hardest guy to figure the outcome of in the entire NFL.
Time for the mailbag.
Harris, this is Brady in North Carolina. I'm sure you've heard about the woman who was attacked by an axe-wielding clown here last Friday morning in Hickory, North Carolina. They say they've got the guy in custody, but I'm going to let them know that, I've looked into it, and all my sources are coming back to you. So just want to let you know.
Of course, Brady left that voicemail on the Where's Chris Harris hotline, which is somehow an actual real thing that exists in the universe. You can get your voice on the podcast. Leave a message at 786-529-4847, a number you don't need to remember because on your keypad it spells out Sunk by Hugs. Sunk by Hugs apparently also is going to become a hashtag, which is fun. So call Sunk by Hugs and let me know what mischief I've been up to, including apparently dressing up as an axe-wielding clown, which may have a little more truth to it than I'd like to admit, because now I'm connecting the conspiracy theory dots here, but you may recall that Dry Erase Girl, our friend on Twitter, made a lovely / nightmarish illustration of a train to commemorate the little podcast that could, and it had a clown on the train. As Joshua Silber tweets, "Hey Harris Football, is that clown wearing footy pajamas?" Good question, Jordan. Very good question. But an even better question is he wielding an axe? This is real X-Files stuff, folks. I want to believe. All right, so let me bust through just a few more emails and tweets. And by the way, I should just apologize. We've apparently been getting so many emails, which is super flattering. The email address is heyharris@harrisfootball.com. We've gotten so many that I'm literally not getting all of them forwarded to me. It's they're sort of just trying to save me workload-wise. It's literally impossible to answer very many of them. Emails that ask questions about your specific fantasy team or your draft or whatever are just so tough to ever get to. I really do apologize about that. In an ideal world, I would want to answer every single one. I actually recommend Twitter questions in that regard. Those kinds of questions are more likely to get answered on Twitter. I don't get to all those either, but I make sure I do some of those every day. I know it can be frustrating. I promise I am not big-timing you. There just aren't enough hours in the day. All right, so anyway, real quick. An email from Jamie Ansavicius. I wonder who would voice the Christopher Harris train in the animated movie about the little podcast that could. That's a good question, Jamie. So I'm going to throw it open to the audience. Drop a tweet or an email and tell us that in the animated movie, who does the voice of the nightmare train? Bruce Wayne. I don't know if it's the real Bruce Wayne, but he tweets, I just saw at Harris Football eye-rolling on a New York City subway after another candy vendor was telling us he's raising money for his basketball team. Yeah, those punks, those basketball team candy vendor punks. I don't blame me for eye-rolling. Todd, who tweets from at 13jackals, Harris Football, I think Gurley's Knee, which of course Gurley's Knee is the band that I christened in yesterday's show. Gurley's Knee is opening for the T-Rich Balloon on 6th Street in Austin this weekend. It's very interesting, especially because Gurley's Knee actually tweeted. Gurley's Knee, at Gurley's Knee, is now a thing, and I think you guys should obviously all be following at Gurley's Knee. And Gurley's Knee tweets, when I was on the operating table, I saw at Harris Football prepping in scrubs right as I was going under the anesthesia. #creepy.
Today's guest.
And if it's Friday, the guest must be Cousin Josh, and I think what most of the world wants to know upon hearing that Cousin Josh is on the show is, what's the food situation? We've all grown very used to hearing your restaurant tales of woe.
So I think Thursday night, last night, is becoming a Chipotle night. I usually hit up the gym, and then right around the corner is Chipotle.
Even after last week? Disaster?
I can't get enough of the punishment that this place is handing down to me. So tonight was no different than last time. I waited on an 8-person line. Took about 14 and a half minutes. This time they had chicken, but what they do now is after they serve you, they line up your bowl, and the person who runs the cash register just vanishes to the back. So you have a line of 9 people with their food ready, and they can't pay.
So you just run. At that point, you just run.
Yeah. I mean, I was at the point where I just take my food and walk out the door.
Right. Well, we apologize that Chipotle will never be a sponsor of this show. Josh, we have you on today because we've just finished the countdown of my 10 swing players for 2015, guys who I see as having an extremely wide possible range of outcomes. You know, I think there's huge feast and huge famine possible for all of them, and I don't exactly know which to expect. I had a hard time ranking them, and they're probably going to win you a lot of leagues and or lose you a lot of leagues. But I brought you on because there are some names on my list that you think I'm crazy that I'm saying the range is as wide as I'm saying, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so, and we talked about the first guy that you take issue with on a couple shows ago, a couple weeks ago, and that's Justin Forsett, the Ravens superstar running back from last season. He was a top 10 fantasy back. He never got hurt. He was amazing, and you think he's going to be good again. You think I'm crazy to see a lot of downside in him.
Oh, yeah, I don't think there's any downside. I don't even think superstar does it justice. I think megastar. But, I mean, you're looking at a guy who finished last year number 8. I'm pretty much all in on Forsett. He's going at pick number 22. I think that's probably right around where he should go. Again, he's still going to be the focal point of that offense. He's 29. He's got very little wear and tear on his tires. Sure, he's 5'10", but I think you bring in Trestman. A year ago, he caught, 44 balls, Forsett? If you take a look at Trestman's numbers in offenses he's led, running backs have averaged 4.3 catches a game. If you extend that over a full season, that gives Forsett 69 receptions. That's 25 more than a year ago.
Right.
I think he's very comparable to a guy that Trestman had in 2002, Charlie Garner. Similar heights. You got a 5'10" player in Garner. Justin Forsett's about an inch shorter than that. And that year, Garner caught 91 balls, 941 yards. Year before that, he catches 72 balls. So for me, I think 69 receptions is easily doable for Forsett. I don't think there's any downside. I don't think injury is a risk. I mean, come at me. I don't understand why you think anything is wrong with Forsett. I don't think why you think that he's an injury-prone player. I mean, what is the downfall with Forsett?
Yeah, no, I mean, everybody has heard me talk about Forsett earlier in the show, and so I'm ceding my time to you. I will re-summarize my argument, which is not that he's an injury-prone player, but that he's never been a good player. And Never did anything like what we saw last season, and I am very suspicious of one-year wonders. And he is a little guy, and I just think it takes one hit. I don't, I find myself not believing in players his size. But people have heard me say that. I want you to register your objections on these guys on behalf of the public at large. You are a man of the people, after all.
Oh, yeah. And again, with Forsett, I don't think this is much different than a guy like Tiki Barber, who towards the latter half of his career kind of put it all together. I know he had more touches leading up to that point towards his post-30, days. But for me, I don't see why Forsett can't put these types of seasons together for the next 2 or 3 years. I'm at the point where I kind of want to go all in and make a bet with you.
What's the bet? Let's do it.
Here's the bet. I have him as a top 15 running back. I mean, do you think I think that's legit?
He's not in my top 15. Nope.
So I'll make a deal with you.
Okay.
If he finishes in the top 15, you and I got to watch a Wes Anderson marathon. Movies. Okay. If he finishes outside top 15, I'll read Infinite Jest.
Oh. You see, you won't, though. I know you won't.
I will, dude. Listen.
Your anti-intellectual strain runs deep, man.
I know I can't sit still for more than maybe 15, 20 minutes, but I am that confident in Justin Forsett's season that
It's a bet. It's a bet. I'll do it. I mean, I don't like Wes Anderson movies. We both know that's the case. I would suffer a lot. See, you're going to read Infinite Jest and love it. I know what I'm going to think of my freaking... What's the Life Aquatic? Ugh. I've seen them all. I just don't.
Life Aquatic is probably the only one that I'm not huge on.
Yeah, Darjeeling Limited. Blah. All right.
Maybe we'll just play Rushmore 5 times in a row. But
yeah, we just saw Rushmore together, right?
It's fantastic. Yeah. So here's another guy, Brandon Cooks. So to me, I don't think this is one of these swing players. I just don't think that there's a high ceiling for this guy. I get where Jimmy Graham is gone, and people want to know, where the ball is going to go to. Sure, he's going to catch balls. I have no issue with that. He played 11 games last year. If you extend what he did last year over a full season, that would put him at 80 catches. Now, again, Graham was there, so I have no problem giving him another 15, 20 catches. Even if he catches 100 balls, for me, I think the dream situation, he catches 100 balls, he totals 1,200 yards, 6 touchdowns. I took a look where that would place him, in last year's stats. That would put him as the number 14 receiver. Right now, he's being drafted, what do you know? Number 14 receiver. So I think his ceiling is exactly where he's being drafted now. Now, for me, I think the downfall, way worse. I think you can get a guy here who still catches 80 balls. The touchdowns is a serious problem for me. They have Ingram there. They have Spiller there. Breeze has no problem spraying balls all over the field. But the bigger issue for me is this guy, to me, is very comparable to a Julian Edelman, who last year caught over 90 balls. I think you can take a guy like Edelman in the 5th round, get very similar value, and at least you've seen Edelman do this. I mean, do you see a higher ceiling for Cooks than that 1,205, 1,206 area? I mean, can you see a situation where this guy breaks 8, 10 touchdowns, puts together maybe like a Colston back in his heyday type of season?
They're such dissimilar players that I hesitate to answer yes to that, but numbers-wise, yes. I do see the upside with Cooks that you don't see. But, for me, I'm listing players that I think have an incredibly wide range of outcomes, so I'm not going to disavow your negative. I agree that your negative is not a lot from Brandon Cooks, a littler guy who's got a lot of pressure on him and has never done it before. But, yes, as I mentioned earlier, I do see the upside with him because the comparison with Julian Edelman is not fair. He's a much better athlete than Julian Edelman, a much better athlete. He's not an absolute burner, but he's pretty fast, and he is extraordinarily quick. This is a kid who is going to be very difficult to cover, and I think he's born to run the seam routes. I think he's born to get, safeties leaning the other way and get past his nickel corner and score some long touchdowns. So I think several long touchdowns are very possible for Cooks, a la T.Y. Hilton. I think T.Y. Hilton and Brandon Cooks, Hilton has a little more long speed, but size-wise they're similar. I think Cooks can play on the outside, so I see the upside, but I also understand your point.
See, to me, I see him more as like inside guy playing those Edelman, those 10, 15-yard routes, Breeze dumping the ball off him. Again, you think he's got those burner speeds where he's going to be taking guys 40, 50 yards downfield.
Yes, I mean, he did last year on a couple of occasions. Is he Antonio Brown? He's not. He's not Antonio Brown. But I don't think he's exclusively a slot player, and he wasn't last year. And boy, if he's exclusively a slot player, they have a lot of slot players because that's all Colston is.
They collect them.
They do kind of collect them. So, all right, but I mean, I think that's why I want to talk about this, because I think it's useful to have another perspective and not have this be just a Harris Football Podcast echo chamber. And I want to talk about Andre Johnson.
Okay.
Because, again, I see the wide range of outcomes, and you claim to me, as we were talking before we recorded this, that you're vexed and concerned that you hear so many people saying that Andre Johnson has huge upside here. You don't see it.
I don't see the upside at all. I think you have a guy who in 12 NFL seasons failed to break double-digit touchdowns every single time. He's never once had 10 touchdowns in a season. I think you take a look at his last 3 seasons. 2 of them, he had 1,598 yards. Another season, he had 1,407 yards. And you total those 3 seasons together, he still only had a total of 11 touchdowns in those years. So I think you go to Indianapolis, yeah, you have Andrew Luck there, but you also got Kobe Fleener to feed. You got Dwayne Allen to feed. T.Y. Hilton is there. We brought in Gore into Indianapolis. He's going to get his at the goal line. Andrew Luck's going to get some of the goal line. So I think touchdowns, he's still going to be capped. I mean, I think you're looking at a guy who, again, 7 or 8 touchdowns. Last year, he failed to break 1,000 yards. So to me, sure, he's going to get his catches. He's always been a guy who can go deep. He can go across the middle. He's going to catch his 80 to 90 balls. I don't even have an issue with that. I just think the yards, you're safe for 1,000. You're capped at 1,150 or 12, but you have that 6 to 7 touchdown range. I don't see any scenario where he could put together that year from 2-3 years ago where he breaks that 1,400-yard plateau and then couples that with 10 or 11 touchdowns. I mean, this is not Andre Johnson from 6 or 7 years ago who's now on the Colts. This is post-30-year-old Andre Johnson who's on the Colts.
Yeah, I think 34. But, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to disagree with you that there's downside there, and the downside is his legs being gone, as I said earlier. But, boy, I'm surprised you don't see the upside, because I think things could break right for him. I don't think 1,500 yards is in the offing because of the legs, but I'm surprised you don't see a possible scenario. I've seen enough turkeys. I've seen enough trash bags in the NFL score double-digit touchdowns. You know, yeah. I think double-digit touchdowns is in play. I think a 1,212 season is possible because Andrew Luck will throw it 600 times.
See, I think it's totally out of the realm of possibility. And I know touchdowns are unpredictable. We say that all the time, and we saw years where Calvin Johnson, was tackled at the 1 5 times. It's unpredictable when they're going to come. But I think when you have 12 years of data, to not pay attention to it when you consistently see a guy scoring 7 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, 6 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns.
I mean, you know what the devil's advocate argument is, though. It's Andrew Luck, and it's not Matt Schaub.
It's not Matt Schaub, exactly.
So, well, I mean, I can't. As I said, I'm not going to fight you strongly on these guys that I know for sure what's going to happen, because I don't. I do see that there's possible upside there for Andre Johnson, which is basically a way of saying I'm not making a stand, whereas you are. So who's the true man in this conversan? I mean,
I think I'm probably the bigger man in this conversation.
Right, not physically, though. They don't know what you look like, not physically.
I mean, again, and you have to understand, I have no issue drafting Andre Johnson. He's going in the middle of the 4th round. I'm fine with that as, a number 2 receiver. I just have my expectations tempered. I'm not sitting here thinking I can take him and win a league because I took him. And I'm also not thinking, all right, if I take Andre Johnson, is he going to ruin my season? I kind of know what I'm getting. I have my expectations set, and I build a team around that.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing you're not going to own him. Even though you said that, I'm guessing you're probably not going to own him. There are higher upside receivers. I know you like your upside in drafts, and you're probably not going to have him. All right. We saved the best for last. This is the guy who apparently I'm going to talk about on every podcast I ever produce in the next 1,000 years, I think. Joik Bell. How do you feel about – so I acknowledged yesterday that I feel like Joik Bell has a wide range of outcomes because I don't know if he's really hurt and I don't know if he's really going to lose his spot in the depth chart. How do you feel about Joique Bell? You think no upside or no downside?
So first, I'll say I'm saying this also after I saw Amir Abdullah's run last night, which was fantastic.
Yes, that cut was pretty insane. Yeah.
So even with seeing that, I think this is another guy kind of in that Justin Forsett situation where I don't see much downside.
Okay.
I think again we know what we're getting. Last 2 seasons, he's finished 14th at running back. He's finished 16th at running back in the last 2 seasons, back to back. You're getting a guy you're picking at number 76. He's already shown he doesn't even need a lot of touches to be productive. You take a look at last year, 223 touches, rushing, I should say, for 860 yards. Caught 34 balls for 322 yards. That was still good enough to get him 14th.
Well, the touchdowns were what got him 14th, right? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And again, there's no reason to think that if he's healthy, which I know is a big if, that he's not going to get that goal line work. They're going to move the ball. I think even if Abdullah takes those third down duties and cuts into some of his carries, still, I don't think there's a reason to think that Bell is going to finish outside the top 20. You're drafting him as an RB2, okay? And you can get him in that 6th round area. To me, there's no downside. He's going 6 picks after Isaiah Crowell on the Cleveland Browns.
I agree that's crazy.
Doesn't even have a definitive job yet in Cleveland.
And even if he does, it's Cleveland. And even if he does,
sure.
I don't think there's any way to justify that. I'm with you. I think I didn't realize that. That's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah. And again, I actually dug into last year's stats for Joique Bell and kind of commenting on that whole idea that he doesn't need a lot of touches. 10 times last year, he carried the ball 15 times or less. 10 times he did that. So he's already shown he could do damage with 13 touches, with 15 touches. Give him 14 rushes, let him catch the ball 2-3 times, give him a TD every other game. He'll end up scoring top 20 numbers for you. I don't think the downside is there, even with Amir Abdullah taking 10 to 12 touches a game. I think there's enough for both of them to go around. I think he can kind of play that. I almost want to say like that Ben Jarvis Green Ellis from a few years ago where 15, 16 touches and a TD here and there, and I think he's good to go as an RB2.
You are on fire. This was good. I mean, really good. You were the one who's actually putting the stake in the ground, and I don't mean to bring up steak as a food item because I know that's going to lead us down some crazy conversational path. It's
going to lead me back to Chipotle, but I go chicken there. I don't go steak.
Right. Well, and I think at some point here, though, we need to start getting some memes, some like internet, people who are doing some graphic design stuff of me have to find some pictures of Josh and set him up with some Chipotle memes. Don't you think that's got to be coming?
Oh, it has to be coming.
Either that or hashtag sunk by hugs. Maybe we could get a Josh Fishberg sighting on the old Chris Harris hotline. So anyway, we talked about 4 guys, and I believe you like 3. Well, you like 2 of them. One's you're okay on, and Brandon Cooks is what kind of bag?
Cooks is just such a trash bag, dude. I mean, I feel bad for anyone who takes that guy and lets him submarine their season. And I have no problem 3-4 weeks from now eating my words, but he's so bad.
Trash bag.
He's a trash bag.
Trash bag. Love it. All right, man. Well, thanks for doing this, and good job, and I hope you enjoy your weekend.
All right, man. You too. No problem, and I'll speak to you soon.
And that's it. That's our show. Thanks for another great week. It's really pretty overwhelming and humbling to see the podcast listed on New and Notable for all of iTunes, to consistently be listed among the top 5 sports podcasts in the world. And it's all because of you. I'd like to shake everyone's hand. I'd like to give everyone a hug. Not sunk by hugs, but an actual hug. Thank you very much. I know there'll be some folks drafting this weekend. Hit me up on Twitter, and I'll try my best to answer your questions. Check the ranks, which I'll keep updating. Thank you again. I hope everyone has a great weekend.
The Harris Football Podcast's opening theme is Under the Gun by Apex Manor. The end theme is Tooth and Claw by OU Villain. Subscribe to the Harris Football Podcast on iTunes and never miss an episode.